guess what some of the impurities in tap water are?
Electrolytes.
Electrolytes, yes. So forget everything I just said here. Do not blow dry your hair in the bathtub. You will die. That was not a lie at all. It will conduct electricity, not because of the water itself, but because of the electrolyte impurities in the water. All right. So going back to our list for water here, does water conduct electricity?
No.
No, it does not. And remember, the nature of this is, in order for something to be an electrolyte, we must meet all three of these criteria. So we don't even really care what 1 and 2 are here. The fact that water does not conduct electricity means it's not an electrolyte. Simple as that. Well, let's try another compound we're familiar with. This time, sodium chloride. First off, is sodium chloride composed of cations and anions? Yes, it is. So we have Na plus cations, Cl minus anions. So very definitely a yes for number 1 here. Is table salt water soluble?
Yes.
Yes, it is. So it all comes down to number 3. Will an aqueous solution of table salt conduct electricity? Well, here I have some distilled water from a lab, so we're not going to have any tap water interference going on here. And what I'll do here is I'll add some table salt. You like this table salt container? This is like $50 a bottle official lab grade table salt. Unless, could I be so cunning as to just take an empty container and refill it every time I need to with a 33-cent thing of Walmart salt?
Yeah.
I would absolutely do that. Looks neat though. So here's some salt. There we go. And we'll stir this to get the salt to dissolve. Would heating this up make the salt dissolve faster?
Yes.
No. We'll learn about that in Gen Chem 2. You guys ready? So, moment of truth here. Is sodium chloride an electrolyte?
Whoa. Yeah.
Yes, it is. There we go. Yes.
Like from Powerade bottles, I know it's a label bag that has like chemical elements. And it has like sodium and chloride, I think it's one of them. Is that the reason why?
Yes. Yeah, you don't pay a lot for those sports drinks, do you? Because basically you can take like Kool-Aid, add a pinch of salt, you got Gatorade. That's all there is to it.
That sucks.
It does. But actually, if you drink Gatorade, you also get a bunch of sugar and fluorescent food coloring too.
That's
Of course, the Gatorade extra bottle once they said conducts. We will?
You want to stick that in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, not you don't want to get the saltiness on there yet. Wait a second. Anyway, next we're going to look at sugar. So another compound we're familiar with. Now, what about sugar? Is sugar composed of cations and anions? You have no idea. You guys are getting the hang of this now. You are not ready to answer that question yet. That's organic chemistry. Well, the second one's easy enough. Is sugar water soluble? Yes, of course it is. Could make a wretched sweet tea if not. Now, the moment of truth here. Would an aqueous solution of sugar conduct electricity? Who knows? Let's figure it out. First I'm going to rinse off our electrodes here, so there's a lot of salt. That's scary. All right. Anyway, brand new fresh batch of distilled water here. And we're going to make ourselves some sweet tea, just like you southern people do. There, big jug of sucrose right here. This is like $100 worth of lab-grade sucrose, unless, do you think I would just reuse this bottle and fill it with Walmart salt?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're on to me now. Let's pretend this is sweet tea.
No, no, keep going.
I don't know how you people do this.
I'm getting diabetes like that.
Yeah, good, man. You drink unsweet tea, right? Good. All the rest of you will get diabetes. Yes, you will.
What if we drink peach tea?
With that much sugar in it?
Oh,
Yeah.
not that much sugar. I don't know how much sugar in peach tea.
Now, would heating this water up make the sugar dissolve faster?
Yes.
Yes, it would. We're about that in Gen Chem too. Okay, folks. So, is sugar an electrolyte?
No.
No, it's not. Oh, maybe a little bit?
No.
Not even a little bit. So therefore, sugar is not an electrolyte. Now obviously, this is going to be kind of challenging for you guys at home. You guys feel comfortable with me sending one of these home with you? Some beakers, some distilled water, you guys can just test stuff at home, see if it's an electrolyte or not?
Absolutely.
Give it to your kid to play with if they get bored? No. Turns out, this is not the safest thing in the world to be using. Now back in the 60s though, we would have a General Chemistry 1 lab involving this conductivity tester. You guys would test a bunch of solutions, each group would have their own thing here, and you guys would use this in lab and have no problems with it at all. It's just the difference between now and the 60s. Let's say Dalton was using this in the 60s, and let's say he decided to touch his tongue to the electrodes and see what happens. He lights up like a Christmas tree, he dies. Do his parents sue us though?
No.
No, they said Dalton was a dumbass. He shouldn't have done that, we're not going to sue. Nowadays though, in 2014, if Dalton stuck his tongue on this, his parents would sue us for millions of dollars and retire to the Bahamas after his death. You know your parents would do that. Anyhow, I'm going to unplug this before I kill myself with it. There. Turns out there is a shortcut around all this stuff. We don't actually need to do number 3 because it turns out 3 is dependent on 1 and 2. So in other words, 3 is going to be yes if numbers 1 and 2 are both yes. And if 3 is no, that means either both of these are no or one of them is no. For example, with water, is water composed of cations or anions? No, it's not. Is water water soluble? Hold your head in right now, Thomas, with your hands. Closing your eyes is going to help. Is water soluble in water? No, it is not.
Oh my gosh, right now.
Turns out to be soluble, the molecule would have to be broken up and surrounded by water molecules. Are water molecules going to break apart other water molecules?
No.
No, they're not. Weird. Weird, weird, weird. And going over to sugar now, since sugar had a no for number 3, we now know something about number 1. Yep. Sugar is not composed of cations and anions, and that's why it's not an electrolyte. There. So from now on, from here on out, we don't need to actually test number 3 anymore. If we verify that 1 and 2 are both yes, we can assume that number 3 would be yes as well. So let's try a different compound here. In the homework, we just saw this compound. Cobalt-2 nitrate. My question for you is cobalt-2 nitrate an electrolyte? Let's go through the list here. Is it composed of cations and anions? Yes, it is. In fact, pretty much everything we've seen in General Chemistry 1 is. So this would consist of cobalt-2 plus cations and NO3 minus anions. So 1 is definitely a yes. Is it water soluble? Oops. I deliberately chose sugar and table salt over there because you guys are familiar with them. You know perfectly well they're water soluble. But what happens when you encounter a compound you don't have any familiarity with? What you do in that case is you consult something called a solubility table.
Oh, you were going to say Google.
Or Google will work too. Sure. Assuming it's right. Which it sometimes is.